Fractions with different digits can be equal or equivalent fractions if their value is the same. So these three fractions behind me are all equivalent fractions. Let's take a look at them. An equivalent fraction can be created by multiplying both the numerator and denominator, or dividing both the numerator and the denominator by the same number. So let's look at our 4/5 here. 4/5. If I multiply both the numerator and the denominator by 2, I will have 4 times 2 equals 8 in my numerator, and 5 times 2 equals 10 in my denominator. 4/5 is equal to or equivalent to 8/10. Similarly, if I have my 4/5 here, and I multiply both my numerator and my denominator by 3, I will have 12 in my numerator. 4 times 3 equals 12, and 5 times 3 equals 15 in my denominator. This works because a fraction with the same number in the numerator as the same number in the denominator is equal to 1. And anytime we multiply or divide a number by 1, it just stays that number. So let's look at a few fractions here. If I have, for example, 4/4, this is equal to 1. Any number over itself equals 1. 7/7 equals 1. 13/13 equals 1. And so anytime I multiply or divide a fraction by any number over itself, I am just multiplying or dividing that fraction by 1, and it keeps the same value as the fraction. Let's look at another example of equivalent fractions. Let's take the fraction 12/16, for example, and I'm going to multiply both my numerator and my denominator by the same number. I'm going to multiply both numerator and denominator by 3. So I'm multiplying 12/16 by 3/3, which really means I'm multiplying 12/16 times 1. And I'm going to end up with an equivalent fraction. 12 times 3 equals 36. 16 times 3 equals 48. And so this shows me that 12/16 and 36/48 are equivalent fractions. Similarly, I could divide both my numerator and my denominator by the same number and create another equivalent fraction. So if I took 12/16 and I divided both top and bottom by the same number, let's divide both top and bottom by 4, which means I'm dividing 12/16 by a number over itself, which is 1, and it's going to keep the value of 12/16. So I do my numerator, 12 divided by 4 equals 3, and in my denominator, 16 divided by 4 equals 4. And I now have another equivalent fraction. 12/16 is equivalent to 36/48, and 12/16 is also equivalent to 3/4. So all three of these fractions are equivalent fractions. 12/16 equals 36/48 equals 3/4. And if I were to plug each of these into my calculator and do 12 divided by 16, or 36 divided by 48, or 3 divided by 4, I would get 0.75 for all three of these. Similarly, in our first example, if I plugged any of these into my calculator, I would get for each of them 0.8. They all have the same value. They're equivalent fractions. Let's look at one more example of equivalent fractions. Our problem asks us, are the following fractions equivalent? And then we're given two fractions, 1/2 and 4/8. To determine if two fractions are equivalent, we need to see if we can find a number that we can multiply both the numerator and denominator by to arrive at the second fraction. So when I see this 1 here, I think, oh, I could multiply 1 times 4 to get 4. And I have to ask myself, if I multiply my denominator by the same number, will I get the other denominator? So let's look at it. If I have 1/2, and I want to see what happens when I multiply both top and bottom by the same number, I multiply my top by 1 by 4, and I get 4, and I multiply the bottom number, my denominator, by 4 also, and I get 2 times 4 equals 8. So yes, I can see that if I multiply both top and bottom, both numerator and denominator, by the same number over itself, I will get my other fraction. And this tells me that these two fractions are equivalent. 1/2 is equal to 4/8.